kingdom within me. Breaking through barriers, success is what I see.
Well, welcome to Dunamis Women. Today, I am the host of the show, Dee Collins, and it's always a great privilege and a pleasure to be with you because you are a woman of power. If you are listening to me as a woman, and if you are a man, trust me, you are a real awesome man. But before we get started, I have a thought-provoking question for you. Where are you in your process? Life takes you on a journey. However, in that journey, in your life and your relationships, you got to go through processes. Whether that may be in a relationship with your husband, relationship with your wife, relationship with your children, relationship with your sister, brother. Relationships are rich because of our process. Ariel, welcome to the show once again.
Thank you.
Are you still in your process?
You are forever in your process. I don't think your process is done until you are in the grave.
Yeah, that's the truth.
But yes, it's a forever going process. It is.
You know, what have you learned as you have been going through your process, even here, let's say within the last 60 days?
In the last 60 days, what I have learned going through my process, I would say mainly in life is probably, I would say not being able to stand still. I think forever learning how to stand still, because I think forever your mind keeps racing and it keeps going and it keeps moving and you want to keep doing something, and it's okay sometimes to learn how to just be still and not do anything at all.
It's amazing that you said that, because one of the things that the Holy Spirit have been ministering to me for a while during my process is from Psalms 46 in the 10th verse, where it says, "Be still and know that I am God." You know, and we as women, we always want to move, do, and you really have to be very careful, because in that moving and doing, you're trying to control things.
Yeah.
You're trying to make it happen within your own self and with your own strength, and going just as reprieve from life for a minute, not get depressed, not abandon your responsibilities, but reprieve and say, God, you have to do this.
Right.
And be still, and that's a process within itself.
That is a process. I think because sometimes we take for granted when we get frustrated and we get so riled up, and so sometimes we get angry with God, but sometimes we need to look at that, and your frustration is a way of God saying you need to sit down, you need to stop, and you need to let me be, instead of using that frustration to be like, well, why is this not happening? Why are you not doing what I'm calling you to do? Or why are the kids not sitting down? All this different stuff. I mean, there's sometimes that frustration, you have to say, okay, I'm getting frustrated in myself for a reason, and a lot of times we like to put it on the enemy and say the enemy's just causing frustration in our life, but sometimes God's saying, no, I'm gonna mess around some different things to let you know you're not in control. And that you do need to sit down, because you're really moving out of your fear of trying to do everything and not letting me just
let me be me.
Let me be me.
Let
and you
me
have
be
faith.
God. You know, just like we always say, let go and let God. You know, just when you're talking and looking back, oh my God, when I was raising you all, particularly as a single mother, you all would frustrate me to the hilt. But it wasn't you all. I would become frustrated because I was in a process at that time. And I was developing. Now, clearly who I was then is not who I am now. But as I was taking this journey and going through my process, you know, the Holy Spirit said, really sit down and look up what frustration means, you know, when you're frustrated. And it really means to nullify or to put to death. So I had to really realize, even as a mother, but not only as a woman, when I became frustrated, what was I killing?
Right.
What was I nullifying? What was I causing not to come to life?
Yeah.
Not only within myself, but within you all as well, you know. And, you know, particularly as women and particularly mothers, we could start lashing out, hollering and screaming at the kids or whatever. It wasn't really doing nothing. But it was really putting things to death that really God wanted to bring to life. And even now, continuously developing. You know, I'm not raising you all anymore in the manner of what I was when you were young and minors, but I also am more cognizant that be still and know that I am God is, Devada, you don't have to do this no more like you used to. Now I am the one who's going to do it within Ariel. I am the one that's going to do it within Allison. I am the one who's going to do it within you. And it's giving up control where we're not being the God of our lives.
Yeah. And I definitely, I'm glad that you mentioned that, because I was actually going to write a blog post about this on my website for parents, because seriously, it comes to a point where you're growing up and you always say, well, I let you do this, or I let you do that. And I remember I got frustrated one day. He was like, well, I'll let you go, right? And so growing up, naturally, when parents, when children come to you for permission, they say, can I go here? And they're like, yeah, I'll let you go there. But there comes a certain point where, as a parent, you literally have to let go.
Let go.
And you can't say, you know, I'm going to let you go. But no, literally, it comes a point where you have to let go and let God be the true father that's in their life. And I think it's so hard to be able to do that. But even if we could do that to ourselves, not necessarily from a parental and a child's standpoint, but really in our own selves, of saying, okay, we grow up and we say, well, nobody gonna tell me what to do no more, and I'm just gonna do whatever I want to do. And you know, God is still our Father, where He can still say, I will let you do this. Or you can go the other way if you want to, but He's still going to let us go, but He's still there to guide us and to protect us. And I think when we talk about being still in the process, especially for people who want to do all what God has called them to do, and God has given them visions, or they probably know that they have things that they want to write, their books, or they want to step out on faith, but they fail to realize sometimes that God downloads that stuff in us, but it's still His.
It's still His,
and not ours. And so sometimes we get so in control of it that we fail to realize He has to move us in our own timing, in His own timing for what we need.
And we have to also realize that I am His. I had to, being raised without my father being present, it was very difficult for me to relate to my Heavenly Father. I looked at Him as God, you know, like my mother, you know, you do what I say, you know what I'm saying? So when He tell me to do something, I do as He say. But it took the lovingness out of it. It took the tenderness out of it, because He cares for me, not as a woman, as His daughter. So I had to come to the place in the be still process, and in my process, to say, I am His. Now, if I had to realize about me, then I had to also realize that about you all. Our children are not really ours.
No.
He gave them to us as a responsibility, but I had to get out of the way of myself. And I said, God, get me out of the way so you won't have to get me out of the way, particularly for you all to grow up. You know, and I know many people probably have gone on so their kids can grow up. You know what I mean? So I got this thing like, consider me dead, but yet alive. You know what I mean? Getting me out of the way and letting me go through my process now, not as a mother, not as, you know, an auntie or a pastor or anything, but as a woman, that I didn't really have time, keyword, time to tend to.
And that actually is so intricate, because I remember when we were doing the scholarship pageant, and one of the girls was writing her introduction for Miss Dunamis Woman. And obviously she's not a full woman yet. And so in part of her introduction, she was saying, in learning how to become a woman, I'm learning how to get myself out of the way so God can have His way. And she was transitioning from that female of becoming that woman, because in the female standpoint, you want to do everything your way. You want to have things your way. It's all about gratifying yourself. But she had to learn, I'm not really going to become the woman that I want to become if I continue to have my own self in the way of doing what I desire to do.
Correct. And I think getting yourself out of the way is the most difficult process.
Oh, it is.
It's the most difficult process, because you want what you want. I'm speaking from a woman's perspective. You want what you want, when you want it, and how you want it, which is a really that control, you know. And a lot of that have taken place, particularly with us as women, in our societies, because we have this independent nature.
Exactly.
And we obtain that by default, because the father wasn't there, the guide wasn't there, the protector wasn't there, the provider wasn't there. And we saw, you know, in our culture, in our community, we see this strong Black woman.
Exactly.
You know, so you put this in your mind in directly, that you have to be this strong Black woman. That means I have to do everything, take everything, and be everything for everybody, and you don't know what to be for yourself.
And unfortunately, and I hope I don't offend anyone when I say this, but that's what we see in our world, but it's really tipping over into our Christianity when it comes to women, because a lot of times they see, if I see one more conference about the purpose-driven woman, or the woman, you know, on purpose, or whatever the case may be, but really I've been observing that women now within the faith are using God
as a pimp.
As a pimp to be able to mask that they are this purpose-driven woman, but really they're after their own purpose and not really God's purpose.
And they want God to provide them for the purpose that they want him to provide for. And they have a belief system that I can ask him for anything according to my will and get it, and not his will.
But they like to say, well, what I'm doing, God gave it to me. And we fail to realize that sometimes God can download us things, he can give you things, but we can also abuse that as well if we adopt it as if it was really our own. And the reason why I'm mentioning it is because when we talk about learning how to be still in the process, we have to know that your grace supersedes your gifts.
Yes.
And so God will remove your gifts just so you can remember his grace that is over your life, because your grace saves you. And a lot of times people, yes, your gifts makes way for you, but a lot of people abuse their gifts to be their grace, and that's not necessarily the true process. And so if God has to sit you down and be still to remind you of his grace and remind you of who he is, he will remove things that are around you.
And he's very strategic. And we don't see him as that strategist who knows how to implement things that can cause you to move in a way that he wants you to move. He doesn't usurp your will, but he will bring things in your life, you know, and that will get you out of the way. And most of that is called pain and suffering, you know. And one thing that we have not been taught in this era of time, I'm old school, is that to get to know him, and even the word tells us this, is that I have to get to know him in the fellowship of my suffering. We cannot be women who just want what we want, when we want it, how we want it, and think we're going to have not only a relationship with Christ, but also a relationship with people in our lives, our spouse, our children. We got to go through a process to get out of the way that he may live. On that note, I'm going to take a break. I am Dee Collins. Stay tuned, and I'll be right back.
Have you visited our website? Go to www.dunamis-woman.com to learn more about us and our ministry and movement as we empower women to dig deeper in their faith and draw closer to the power of God. We look forward to speaking with you and connecting with you on your journey, because God is ready to move in and through you. So go to our website and connect with us at www.dunamis-woman.com.
How to Pray with Power on Purpose is a dynamic book by Dee Collins. If you want to activate your prayer life, get effective prayers, key strategies on how to change your life and experience breakthroughs in prayer, it is a must that you go to www.dunamis-woman.com and get your copy.
Well, welcome back. There you have it. Please get a copy of the book, How to Pray with Power on Purpose. I promise you there's nuggets in there that even what we're talking about today, still being in your process, that you will understand the purpose of your process. You will understand the purpose of it and how to channel that in prayer. And then I definitely want to see you at the Emotional Healing Clinic and Empowerment Clinic right there at the Apex Museum, because you're going to get a lot of more in-depth teachings of what we're talking about on today. Do you believe that, Ariel?
I believe it.
Well, I know you believe it, but anyway.
So before we get back into the subject of I'm still in the process, we have a Dear Dee.
Okay.
This is coming from Facebook as well. And it says, ooh, I like this one.
You all don't let me see this beforehand.
No, but this one sounds like me. Okay, so it says, I'm a flirt, have always been. It's my personality. I'm not disrespectful, but my boyfriend thinks so. I just want to be me. Help.
Wow, that does sound like you. It sounds like me. You know what I mean?
I think Libras are naturally a flirt.
Right. But once again, it's a process.
Right.
It's a process. Oftentimes, particularly with the man in your life, your personality can be misconstrued to be very flirtatious. However, as a woman, you have to be cognizant not to allow that to become flirtatious, particularly in respect of the man that's in your life. One good thing about being a woman is that you have to know how to take ownership and adjust. I don't like to say change, because when we say, ooh, you know, I'm not going to let this man change me, or I'm not going to let anybody change me, nobody wants anybody to change them. And nobody wants anybody to control them. And realistically, can't nobody change anybody. I can't change a man, and a man can't change me. But I can make some adjustments in my life in respect of that relationship. You know, that's one of the beautiful parts about not being in a relationship. However, I have to also now come through that process, and I have to do it for myself. Because other people can take who you are and they can misperceive you. It's not the fact that you're not free to be me. I had to learn in a part of my process that I can't be just free with everybody.
Yeah.
And at one point I was just, free, particularly because I had been bound, particularly because I had come over a lot of emotional abuse, and I had come out of a very abusive relationship, and so I just became free, particularly when I discovered myself, you know, and I was like, I am this beautiful person with this personality, and particularly as an entrepreneur, and I'm just going on, but I had to learn how not to be that with everyone, and particularly when I became a pastor.
Yeah.
Everything is a process. I didn't learn it out the gate being a pastor because I was too free with the members. I was too free with the people. And if I was to do it over again, and if God was to have me do it over again, I wouldn't be that free. I wouldn't be that free.
Yeah, and I don't think it's necessarily, no, especially when we talk about learning how to be still in the process, because I think we also have to be mindful. I'm reminded in Galatians 1:10 when it talks about, am I trying to win the approval of man?
Yes.
And it's saying, you know, by trying to be popular by man, I'm taking away being a bondservant of Christ. And a lot of times we look at, you know, doing the will of God and being a godly woman, that it's bondage, when it's really not. And I think sometimes, especially when we talk about that question, when you think of, okay, well, this is taking away my personality and who I really am, but it's always a time and a place for everything, and also knowing strategies. What is your motive behind the way that you are acting or perceiving? And a lot of times when we do things in life, we're really trying to get the popularity of man, especially when it comes to learning how to be still in the process, and when it comes to Christians, especially in my generation. I feel like a lot of people want to do things that God called them to do just to seek popularity. If I see one more person say, oh my God, like I just did my own YouTube video and it's all over like social media. I mean, there's sometimes we could do things that we don't have to post all over. So it's like, are you doing it to get social approval, or are you doing it to actually be a bondservant of Christ?
Well, see, but on that note, particularly in your generation, we understand this as, in my generation, baby boomers, you all want instantaneously.
Yeah.
You all want what we had to work for, you know, and there's some principles that will never change.
Exactly.
Now, you could have an easy and quick come up, but just as sure as you come up very quickly, just as very down, you're going to come as quick.
Right.
The Bible said where there's pride that elevates your mind, there's a great fall. He didn't say there's a fall, there's a great fall. So I'm always in my teachings, particularly to younger generations, is to be very cognizant and be patient with yourself, that you allow God to grow you up in your process, because you're living for the now, but you don't know where you're going to be in the future.
Exactly. And it's a key to preparing.
It's preparing.
He is going to prepare you through your process so that you can get to where you want to go. And a lot of people don't want to be prepared. It's just like when you go to school. You can't go and take a test and then you haven't studied, you haven't prepared. And even when this even topic came up and I was talking about Apostle Paul and how when he knew that God called him, he knew that God had something great for him to do with his life, but he didn't go run and tell men when it was downloaded into him. He didn't go get someone else approval, question someone, say, hey, let me ask you about this. Do you think it's good or not? When God already stamped it to you and he already called you, then it's already good enough. And I think a lot of times that we go and we ask for that, but really what he did the moment he was called is that he went away for years, not even for just 2 months. He went away for years because he was patient and he knew he knew that God called him. He didn't have to justify it.
And he didn't have to prove it.
He didn't have to prove it.
No, and he didn't have all the social media to try to be that when he was just only being who he was called to be.
Exactly.
I used to teach from a quote that I had learned when I was a spiritual leader or pastor, shall I say, and it was proper preparation prevents poor performance.
Yeah.
Proper preparation prevents poor performance. That's a process. To be prepared is a process. We have to be very cognizant as people, period. I don't care what your relationship is. May it be with your children, may it be with your mate, may it be with your constituents, may it be as a boss. You have to allow people to go through their process. Too often we're trying to make someone be what we have become only because we went through our process. You know, it's ludicrous. I can't expect you to be something that I am and you haven't went through your process. I don't care how intelligent you are. I don't care how you can read and comprehend better than me. I give it to you, Ariel. You know that technology. You know how to build websites. You know how to do things in your era of time that I can't even wrap my mind around. And if I try to do what you do, I will frustrate myself. I let it go. That's why God will send you people. You can't be everything. But on the flip side, you don't work with people the way I have been developed in my process to work with people.
Oh no, I go away.
You know what I mean? You know?
I'm a, what you call it, an ambivert.
Yeah, you know?
I can be an extrovert, but then I need to be an introvert.
And it's not just the fact it's people, it's understanding the mind, it's leadership, it's understanding the issues, and not only that, it's knowing how to properly respond, knowing how to properly. I meet a lot of people who are still going through their process. And I understand, baby, you're going through your process. So why would I respond ignorantly or belligerently when I know you're going through your process? That's why I will just extend love to you, you know? And people say, well, Dee, how do you do that? Because I understand they're going through their process. Keep it living. You know, there is no need for me to argue or even address certain things with you and your sister at this juncture of your life. Now, if you was 12 and 13, maybe yes. At 28, 29, 30, no. You know why? Because you got to go through your process. The best thing that I can do is to go through my process, so when you come to me, it's inevitable, as long as I'm breathing, that you will come to me, that I can respond appropriately without saying, I told you so.
That is very true.
And that's a process within itself.
So what are some strategies that you would give a woman, just maybe one strategy about learning how to be still?
To be still is a place in your emotions. It's not literally, oh, let me be still and not do anything. You know, the book that I'm writing now is called The Power of a Silent Woman. Now, most women misconstrue that title, be like, oh, I just can't say nothing. You know, and then the men are, when they hear it, they're like, oh, when that book coming out? You know what I'm saying? But the power of a silent woman is not, it's not that I can't address anything. What's the purpose of it? What is the timing of it? See, because I'm being still in my emotions. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Emotions is movement. And most of the movement comes out of your mouth.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true.
And you start saying stuff that, first of all, you don't need to say, and it stirs up another person, and it stirs up this person. When all the thing you got to do is be confident in who you are. Isaiah 11th chapter, it talks about quietness and confidence is your strength. See, it's not the word that I quote, it's the word that I strive to live by. Can I implement that? So that's the difficult part. Okay, Lord, now my challenges come. He said, be quiet, be still. You know, I remember when before I was divorced and I was in my marriage and he was, you know, verbally abusive. And, oh, if Devetta didn't know anything at one point in her life, oh, I could put some words together, you know, and you know that. And I could say them and it make you think. And it was some real nice words, you know what I mean, that was strategically aligned. And he would come at me and was just saying these words and abusive and everything. And the Holy Spirit would say, be quiet. Be quiet. Be still. You know, now I was still going through my thing emotionally to align myself with what I heard, but I had to keep the calmness. See, that was my work. If I had focused on him, which I'm speaking the strategy now, I would have lost sight of myself. That experience grew me up in a process that I'm able to handle greater adversities. Yeah. You know, if I had to start talking and going back at him and arguing and bickering or whatever, I would have aborted my process. And guess what? I would have ended up in another relationship having to go through that process because I didn't get it in the first one. You know what I'm saying? And I want to get this one, you know, because in the one before that, I could say some things.
Yeah.
You know, you got to be still and listen to yourself. Listen to the guidance of the Spirit. Listen to what is being spoken to you. Oftentimes we're looking out the window when God wants us to look in the mirror. Did that answer your question?
No, it did. It did. And I think it's so important because the Holy Spirit is definitely with us every single step of the way. And I believe that sometimes we like to ignore him or we like to, you know, dismiss, oh, nope, I didn't hear that one. And it's just very subtle, you know, very subtle of being just obedient. And
well, we're listening for the wrong things.
Yeah.
We want him to tell us, what's the numbers for the lottery? You know,
Yeah.
we want us to tell him, you know, do this so I could get prosperity. You know what I'm saying? He will tell you what he needs you to do for you, that you may grow up, that your journey and your process may bring you closer to him. There is no life without him. There is no relationship first with him. And please, I really don't really care for the denomination, how you were raised, who you were raised by, because we all have a responsibility to go through our process, to treasure life and relationships. And there is no relationship without your Creator. He created us. All of us was made the same internally. We have organs, we have blood running through our veins, but yet we have different processes. Don't allow your process to be inflicted upon somebody else's where you hinder them. Every man, my mother used to say as I close, and you might not understand it, but I'm going to leave you with this thought-provoking quote. Every man wears his own shoes, and every tub sit in his own bottom. Well, with that being said, I am Dee Collins. I'm the host of this show, and we'll see you next week. Ariel, thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Stay in your process.
Yes.
Stay in your process.
Have you ever heard the proverb, iron sharpens iron? Now that's a dunamis woman. Join Devetta Dee Collins, spiritual leader and coach, for Conversations and Coffee every first and third Saturday at Sprinkles Donuts and Coffee Shop, 2000 Mirror Lake Boulevard in Villa Rica, Georgia, from 9 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. Be impacted and inspired to take your life and relationships to the next level in 2018.
A man cannot truly love a woman until he has submitted or surrendered to something bigger than him. For me, that is God, and that is my purpose. When you understand that, then you begin to understand life. Then you begin to respect life, and that allows you to respect a woman. Now guess what? There's benefits to this love. When you really start to love, your life starts to change.
There used to be a time where I could meet you and say, hey, how are you doing? My name's Jack. It's nice to meet you. Can I take you out? Versus like submit or click or like or love or all of these different things that are basically taking away the human connection. So for me, I'm old school. I like the idea of a man pursuing a woman. And those are the things that I try to teach as much as possible to women to be attracted to men who are all about that. Not just a guy that just texts you, but a guy that actually pursues you for who you are and the woman that he wants to be with in long-term relationships.
Y'all just try to tell black women not to be in relationships. You just want to keep the black woman single. But here's the issue. We're trying to keep you from the result of what we know is going to come. And when we tell you to wait on the Lord, it means, like I've told you before, it is a binding of the cords together. God is saying, if you're waiting on me, then I'm binding something. I'm doing something that you can't see. And most of the work that needs to be done is not in the one who's coming, but it's in you.
Taking authority.